Hi, everybody. I'm Lauren Panepinto, Creative Director of Orbit Books, and now I am Cocktail Director of Orbit Books. So, welcome to the first official Orbit Tavern Happy Hour. Last week we started a little beta test, and it went well. So, here we are again. And every week on Thursday, while we're in quarantine and maybe beyond, we'll see how it goes. I will be teaching. I will be pairing a cocktail with one of the Orbit books that I most find cocktail ready. And right now, we're going to be talking about The Ranger of Marzanna, which came out Tuesday from Jon Skovron. And we are inviting him into the Instagram Live right now. So we will see, hopefully, the internet gods bless us. Hey, welcome. It worked.
Hey!
All right. This gives me a second to get behind the bar.
Yeah.
Everyone, welcome Jon Skovron, author of The Ranger of Marzanna. Congratulations. It's your book release week. Why don't you tell everybody about yourself while I make sure everyone can see my bar.
Okay. Well, Ranger of Marzanna is the first book in my new trilogy, The Goddess War. I feel like I've said this like a million times this week already, so apologies if you saw any of the earlier stuff. But it's about two siblings who find themselves on opposite sides of a conflict with an empire that's occupying their country, and one wants to help the empire and the other one wants to kick the empire out. So that's a super, super simple, stripped down version of it. But it has a very Slavic flavor to it, I guess, is the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is your release week, so you've been doing a ton of virtual events online. There's a great conversation, I think, on Crowdcast. And if you go to orbitbooks.net or Jon Skovron's pages, you could find recordings of all those things, and that's a much more in-depth conversation about the book. And specifically right now, we're going to talk about what cocktail would work with your book. And I cheated. I had a little conversation. We had a little conversation in advance. But my initial idea about The Ranger of Marzanna was that because the fantasy world, the world building is inspired by kind of an Eastern European, Slavic kind of empire culture, time for vodka.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Time for vodka. And since I'm holding this, I just wanted to shout out this amazing cover by Magali Villanueva, who's a Magic the Gathering artist, very well known. And she did this cover for us, and I adore it. And Lisa Marie Pompilio, one of the Orbit Cover Coven, designed the type and the layout. So just wanted to shout that out.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so thrilled with the cover. I was just thinking the other day, like, oh man, I can't wait until because I already sent the descriptions in for the second book, and so I'm so excited to see what she does for the second book too. I know I'm just sounding greedy now at this point, but I'm super stoked to see it.
No, it's not greedy at all. I actually know Magali's working on the thumbnails right now. She lives in France, so we've been talking, when time zones permit, and she's working on it right now. So I'm as excited as you to see what the thumbs are. And have you released the title of the next book? Do we know? Are we allowed to say?
Yeah, no, I think it's at the end of the first book, so I think it's okay to say. It's going to be called The Queen of Ismaros.
Amazing.
So that's yeah. I think they've listed. I think there's even the first chapter is at the end of the first chapter. Great. The second book is at the end of the first book. So
of course it is. Okay, I'm just so careful to not. I know about things so far in advance that I'm always scared to say things publicly.
Yes. No, I hear you. I feel the same way.
So what I thought would be great, and we talked about also, specifically with vodka, is a great opportunity to talk about martinis. And martinis, there's so much controversy about martinis, but a martini is probably the most famous cocktail in the world, in the entire cocktail canon, but it's also the most fought about. So we're going to do a vodka martini today. I have some vodka here. We were looking for Polish vodka because that would be, I'm part Polish and you're part Polish.
Oh yes, I'm more than part.
More than part. But it's quarantine times and we're doing the best we can. So I will not reveal the kind of vodka we have, but we have vodka right here.
That's all. At the end of the day, it's vodka.
And at the end of the day, we're all in quarantine, so you can make a martini with any kind of white spirit. If you have, I mean, traditionally a martini is made with gin. You can make it with vodka. You can make it go crazy. You can make a tequila martini. You can make a martini. You can make, really all a martini is 2 parts liquor to 1 part vermouth with some bitters. That's it. It's like everybody fights about it, and they fight about, oh, dry martini, wet martini. There's so much like mystique around it, and we're going to break that down. But really, vermouth is just fortified wine. So you can have dry, which looks like white wine, or sweet, which looks like red wine. And that's really all there is to it. It's just like 2 main parts. So what we're going to do is take our vodka. Again, if you're following along at home, if you're not, you know, you can just enjoy us making this and make it for yourself later. So you like martinis, Jon?
I do, yeah. Vodka or gin, yeah.
Vodka or gin. Do you have a preference of you're a dirty martini guy, right?
I do. I like them dirty. Yeah. I like them dry and dirty.
Dry and dirty. So there's the people, if you don't know a lot about martinis, you know, you hear people throw around like dirty martini, wet martini, dry martini, lemon peels, olives, onions. Like, what is the deal? So so a dry martini, so a regular martini, the classic martini, is 2 parts liquor to 1 part vermouth with lemon peel. However, if you want it to be a dry martini, you have more liquor, less vermouth. And if you want it to be a wet martini, you have less liquor, more vermouth.
Oh, I didn't actually know that.
Yeah, right? It makes sense. So the more liquor you have, the drier it is. I mean, it's all liquid, right? But
yeah.
The more vermouth you have, the wetter it is. That's all that means. So, and when people say dirty, they mean switch the lemon for an olive. That's all that means. So if you go extra dirty, that means you don't only have an olive and whatever juice comes with the olive, you have extra juice. So a lot of times you hear, you know, like, look, people like to say dirty martini at a bar. It's cool. It's like, I get it. It's sexy. But it's funny, like sometimes if you go, like you hear people sometimes, especially in New York, when they're trying to sound cool, they're like, I want an extra dry, extra dirty martini. That actually can't exist, because if it's extra dirty, it has a lot of extra juice in it, and it can't be dry. So wet or dry, dirty or not, here we go. I'm gonna make that. So do you have the makings for a martini at home?
I do. Yeah. I don't have any gin on me, but I do have some Icelandic vodka and some vermouth and plenty of olives.
Cool. So I have a question. Are we shaking this or are we stirring this? Because that's the other giant debate about martinis.
Well, is there a debate about it? I think it's just a question of whether you're on duty or not, right? That was why James Bond always took his shaken, right? Because the whole thing, when you shake it, you're actually breaking ice crystals into the martini, and you're diluting it, right?
Oh, very good.
So that was actually his one concession. He's like, well, I'm on the job right now, so I better have it shaken instead of stirred.
Right,
so that
you better have it watered down.
Yeah. That was like, it was like a running gag in the original. Of course, in the original Ian Fleming books, he actually drank Americanos, but that's a whole other thing. But
yeah, and the first time he says, I double checked this before we started. The first time he says shaken not stirred was actually about a Vesper. So a Vesper martini, I'm checking my notes because I don't want to screw any of this up, is the James Bond recipe was for a Vesper. So it's 3 ounces of gin, which is a big drink, an ounce of vodka. So you already got like 4 ounces of liquor.
Okay.
And only half an ounce of dry vermouth. So like he was packing a lot of alcohol and then shaken. So yeah, you can shake. So do you want to shake? You want to shake this, or do you want to stir it? It's up to you.
I mean, I always prefer it shaken personally, because I feel like it gets colder that way.
Let's do it. All right. So I have a Boston shaker, which just means 2 parts. You can also have a cobbler shaker, which is the shaker.
That's the one I have at home.
Yeah, the shaker.
I have that one.
Yeah, that you can kind of like pour out. But again, we're in quarantine, so like if you have a mason jar, that's fine. If you have Tupperware, like under duress, just put an ice cube in Tupperware and just shake it. But we're gonna do this in a Boston shaker because I like Boston shakers. So 2 ounces of vodka, 1 ounce of dry vermouth, 2 dashes of orange bitters. So some people leave that out when you do a dirty martini, but I think it goes kind of well. So bitters, if you don't know what bitters are, it's kind of like spices for drinks. That's all it is. So the most famous one is Angostura bitters. It kind of tastes like Christmas. This is orange bitters, so it just gives it a little extra citrus. And I'm gonna put how many olives are we gonna put in this?
I mean, I usually do 3.
3. Okay, so
yeah, because you know I love olives. It's terrible probably, but
so I'm gonna put 3 bar spoons of olive juice in here. So that's a very brangy, very dirty martini. Let's put that down. Ice. So I said this last week, but it was beta. So it's famous old bartender lore that you could only ever use odd numbers of ice cubes and things.
Oh,
so
really?
Like 1, 3, or 5, either in the shaker or in the glass. You should never use 2 or 4. It's something about healthy, wealthy, and wise. You know, or like good luck. So it's good luck to use odd numbers. Back in bartender lore, not sure. And what I also said that the most important tip when you're using a 2-part shaker is always have the big one on the bottom. So if you screw it up and the seal breaks and it goes all over you, it goes over you. It doesn't go over your guest or over your phone. So how do you know how long to shake? So right now, if you look, you can see the tin is starting to condense. Like there's you know, it's getting cloudy. So the more you shake, the more diluted it is. So if you're James Bond and you're on duty, you just shake some more. And then you have to break the seal without getting it all over yourself. There. And then martini glasses are always another point of contention. I like using a coupe, which is a round kind of cocktail glass. I don't actually have one of those Art Deco. The closest I have is this guy, which is like a little teeny one. But you know what? If you have a wine glass, we're in quarantine. Use a wine glass. Yeah. You want a martini on the rocks? Do it on the rocks. Do whatever you want. We're in quarantine.
It's a quarantini.
It is a quarantini. It's true. And if you like the ice chips, then you shake to get a little extra ice. And I have a cocktail pick. So we're going to put 1, 2, 3. Ugh, I'm making a mess in my living room bar. 3 olives. Cheers. See, this is torture because now I made the drink, but I can't actually pass it to John. So you're gonna have to virtual cheers me.
I have some water in a Han Solo glass.
Oh, nice. So that is, yeah, that's very olivey because the thing about using vodka versus gin is there's a lot more botanicals. That's really the only difference between vodka and gin is juniper berries and botanicals and things like that. People get crazy about, oh, it's not a real martini if it's vodka, whatever.
I've heard that.
Drink what you like. There's a lot of purists in the world. Drink what you like. If you like it with a lot of olives in it, drink olives. Let's see. So what did we go over? We went over James Bond. So if you want to be James Bond, shake it. But stirring it is fine as well. Technically, you're supposed to shake drinks with juice in them, and you're supposed to stir drinks with only spirits in them. Because if it's just spirits, you can keep them a little like silkier, like they just kind of oozy in your mouth. But again, if you want it to feel more refreshing and have some ice and like ice crystals on top, then shake it. Again, we are not a purist bar here.
No, which is great.
The Orbit Tavern is all about giving you all of the information and no cocktail shaming. No genre shaming, no reading shaming, and no cocktail shaming. Um, so, uh, so again, to go over, dry means less vermouth. Wet means more vermouth. That's the only difference there. Um, Upside down is another thing people do, 50-50 or upside down. So 50-50 is half liquor, half vermouth. Upside down is switching it. So instead of 2 ounces of liquor and 1 of vermouth, you switch it. So it's 2 ounces of vermouth and 1 of liquor.
What's that like?
It's very vermouthy, for lack of a better term. Like if you like the flavor of vermouth,
Uh-huh.
you know, you might not like that if you like a really dry martini.
Yeah.
But it's like a totally different cocktail, really.
Huh. I
Because
might
it's
try it though, just cause.
Yeah, try it upside down. Um, Extra dirty, like we said, is olive and juice. A Gibson is just a martini with a cocktail onion instead of a cocktail olive. And that's actually named after, dear to my heart, illustrator, a famous illustrator at the turn of the century named Charles Dana Gibson. Like, if you've ever heard Gibson girls, like the turn of the century, like with the big buns.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He was famous for ordering that in bars, so they named it a Gibson. And a Martinez, which actually was the drink before the martini, it was kind of like a proto martini, just uses sweet vermouth instead of dry vermouth. Because sweet
Now,
vermouth.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Every time I go to the grocery store, I'm always like, what olives is best for a martini? There's always like Spanish olives, like the bigger ones, and like what's the best one, do you think? Does it matter?
Honestly, I mean, I picked the green ones, obviously,
Uh-huh.
because I'm just gonna go for green. I mean, it's the olives you like,
Mm.
Technically,
So it doesn't really matter.
it doesn't matter. I mean, people use stuffed olives. I've been in places that have so much stuff on the in the olive on the stick. It's almost like a Bloody Mary. It's like blue cheese stuffed olives with pimentos and peppers, and it's like a kebab instead of a cocktail stick. I mean,
We should point out for the Gibson that it's their little pearl onions, right?
oh
They're
yeah, they're
little.
little teeny tiny onions. Not
Yeah,
like
someone was questioning onion in the comments. I was like, imagine like, oh yeah, put the whole thing. It's the little ones, like the kind you get in green beans or peas. You know what I'm talking about?
yeah, 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 peas and onions. Totally.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, those little like pearl onions.
Uh-huh.
I never really liked those until I had a batch that somebody homemade, which is a big thing with cocktail garnishes in general, especially cherries. Like we're so used to those like really fake neon cherries that you get on ice cream, and like people love those. And I'm not here to hate. I really despise that like plasticky texture. So I always thought I hated cocktail cherries until a friend of mine made like homemade brandy cherries, and they were
Mm.
really really good. So I actually keep a bag of frozen cherries, just from like the frozen whole cherries from like Whole Foods or anything, in my freezer, and I use those instead of a cocktail cherry, which also acts as kind of like an ice cube. But that's off topic. We'll do cherries another day. But yeah, I mean, I see the green olives, like Spanish green olives, more often. But if
Hmm.
you like something really, really, really briny, I mean, put a Kalamata olive in there and like knock your socks off.
Okay, that's
Like, you're
allowed. I
fine.
mean, as I said, I told you before, I have a really weird palate, so
Yeah,
that
you
kind of
said you don't like anything sweet, right?
nothing, literally nothing sweet. I was born that way. Even as like an infant, I wouldn't drink juice or anything. It's just like, and people have a hard time like wrapping their head around. They're like, well, not even like ice cream? No. Not even cake? No, no. Not
So
even cookies? What about apples? It's like,
what's
it's
your
all no.
guilty snack food? Are you like more of a salty snack
Oh
guy?
yeah, yeah. It's all like pretzels and like popcorn and
Yeah.
chips and stuff. That's like my
Well,
my go-to
then the
spoiling.
extra dirty makes a lot of sense. I feel
Yeah,
like.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
The more savory, the better.
yeah. Um, so let's see. We went over the martini lingo. I'm gonna post all this afterwards too, all the notes and things. I also wanted to shout out. I'm trying to shout out. Like I said last week, I'm an amateur cocktail nerd. I've never worked as a professional bartender. I don't pretend to be a professional. That's why I'm pairing books with classic cocktails instead of like coming up with my own. There are people on the internet, there are cocktail lessons all over the place, and they're much more educated folk than I. I am just kind of sharing the love a little bit. So this week I'm shouting out, if you're really interested in martinis, Robert Simonson, who writes for the New York Times and wrote literally the book on martinis called The Martini Cocktail. is at Robert O. Simonson on Instagram, and he talks about drinks and martinis a lot in his articles. His website links to all his cocktail articles. In his martini book, if you're interested in learning more about martinis, is great. He also has a book called 3 Ingredient Cocktails, which is great for this quarantine time when we don't really have access to a ton of ingredients unless you have a bar in your house. I think that's it. I think if you enjoyed this, send questions, send cocktail questions, send book questions. Again, congratulations on your book release.
Thank you.
Definitely read The Ranger of Ismaros, have a vodka cocktail or a vodka shot, no judging, while you read, and it'll, it'll give you the ambiance of the book. Think about cold Russian nights.
Yeah. When I was in college, we had these Russian movement teachers from the Moscow Art Theater, and like whatever ailment you had, they would invariably suggest that you would have vodka with fresh ground pepper in it. And I was like, really? I don't know if that's gonna like really work for me for like a sprained ankle. They're like, oh no, that too. It was like, oh, you have cold. Oh yeah. It didn't matter what it was. They just boom, just knock it back. That was kind of their go-to.
Yeah, I spent a month in Moscow as an exchange student in 1995, and it is true that vodka for everything. Vodka to clean the windows, vodka to make you feel better, vodka for ailments, vodka for happy, vodka for sad, vodka for
and that's not just exclusive to Russians either. I have a Czech friend, and she said growing up there was, I can't remember the name of it. There's this liqueur in this Bavarian liqueur, or not Bavarian, Bohemian liqueur.
Is it Becherovka?
I think that's it, yeah. And she said that like when she was not feeling well, her grandmother would be like, yeah, just take a shot. It looks like she's like a kid, and like, take a shot of that before you go to school. And
absolutely. Well, I was raised Italian American, but Italian, and my grandmother always had a ton of Amaros around. You have like the red, like Camparis or red Amaros before dinner to make you hungry. Then you have the brown Amaros like Fernet, if you have a stomachache because you ate too much, if you have a cold, you just, I think keeping the kids a little drunk worked in the old country.
I mean, maybe we should start trying that here. Someone in the comments just suggested Tabasco with vodka, which made me think of like a Bloody Mary. That's always a spicy bloody, like a Cajun Bloody Mary or whatever. Those are always good.
Yeah, and I'm not a big fan of Bloody Marys because I don't like tomato juice. But I could see just skipping. If you take the tomato juice out of a Bloody Mary, it's really just vodka and Tabasco. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like is there some Worcestershire sauce or something in there as well, or did I make that up?
Oh yeah. I think you're right. Bloody Marys is not my forte. So,
I only like them if they're like super spicy.
That makes sense. Definitely not sweet.
No.
All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up right now. Cheers for your book release. I'm
Thank
sorry
you.
I can't send this cocktail through the internet.
Is it good?
Boy, I hope.
Is it too salty for you?
No, it's good. I like
it.
I like ours. So if you enjoyed this or you want to post about it, search Orbit Tavern. We're going to be doing this every Thursday with a different book and a different author and a different cocktail. So I'm going to climb over there and finish the, excuse me, as my head gets cut off, finish the Instagram Live. There's no, graceful way to end these.
No. I'll see you later. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Thanks for coming.
Oh, I've got one more thing tomorrow night on Twitter at 7. So another live thing for me. Yay! Will be my last one, I swear.
You know what? It's book release week. Never feel shy about talking about your book. People want to hear about books.
I know it's just a weird feeling. It is, but yeah, one more thing tomorrow night. So.
Well, congratulations, and at the end of the week, definitely make yourself a celebratory.
I absolutely will. Yeah, you can count on it. All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.